Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline, running in place. Updated September 28, 2020. In 2020, uncertainty has clouded the future of Nord Stream 2, a controversial natural gas pipeline that would increase the amount of Russian natural gas exported directly to Germany and on to other European Union (EU) member states, bypassing Ukraine and other transit states. Figure 1. Pipeline construction was suspended in December 2019, after the passage of U.S. legislation establishing sanctions related to the pipeline. The Trump administration and Congress have expressed opposition to Nord Stream 2, reflecting concerns about European dependence on Russian energy and the threat Russia poses to Ukraine. About 100 miles of the approximately 760-mile pipeline remain to be laid and connected. After several months of delay, in May 2020 a Russian pipelaying vessel arrived at Germany's Mukran port, a logistics hub for Nord Stream 2. Observers have expected the Russian state-owned company Gazprom to use that ship, which until recently was owned by a subsidiary, and a second vessel to try to finish the pipeline. Russian officials have said the pipeline could be completed by the end of 2020 or early 2021. Background: Nord Stream 2 is being constructed alongside the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, in operation since 2011. If completed, Nord Stream 2 would double the total capacity of the system, from 55 billion cubic meters (BCM) to 110 BCM per year. Nord Stream 2 is estimated to cost about $10 billion. It is owned entirely by Gazprom. Half the cost is being financed by 5 European companies: Engie, France, OMV, Austria, Shell, Netherlands, UK, Uniper, Germany, and Wintershall, Germany. This ownership structure differs from Nord Stream 1, in which Gazprom has a 51% stake in 4 European companies: Engie, Wintershall, E.ON, Germany, and Gasunie, Netherlands, own the rest. Support and opposition. Although the EU has articulated an ambitious energy diversification strategy, some European governments have not reduced dependence on Russian gas, which accounted for 47% of EU imports in 2019. Factors behind continued European reliance on Russian supply include possible rising demand for natural gas, diminishing European gas supply, financial investments by Russia in European infrastructure, and the perception of many Europeans that Russia remains a reliable supplier. Supporters of Nord Stream 2, including the German and Austrian governments, argue that the pipeline will enhance EU energy security by increasing the capacity of a direct and secure supply route at a time of rising European demand for gas. German officials and others have said that once the gas reaches Germany it could be transported throughout Europe. These advocates say they support developing additional infrastructure to ensure this is possible. The German government stresses that it also supports broader European energy supply diversification efforts, including by backing construction of new liquefied natural gas (LNG) terminals in northern Germany. Figure 1. Nord Stream gas pipeline system. Opponents of the pipeline, including, among others, some EU officials, Poland, the Baltic states, Ukraine, the Trump administration, and many members of Congress, argue that it will give Russia greater political and economic leverage over Germany and others that are dependent on Russian gas, leave some countries more vulnerable to supply cutoffs or price manipulation by Russia, and increase Ukraine's vulnerability to Russian aggression. Critics of Nord Stream 2 were initially hopeful that the European Commission, the EU's executive agency, would block the project by invoking EU regulations intended to prevent monopoly control of energy projects. In May 2020, Germany's national energy regulator affirmed that Gazprom could not own both the portion of the pipeline in German territorial waters and a majority of the gas flowing through it. Analysts speculate, however, that Gazprom could seek to sell or transfer ownership of that portion of the pipeline in order to comply with the regulations. More recently, pipeline opponents, including within Germany, have argued that the German government should block the pipeline in response to malign Russian activity, including an alleged chemical nerve agent attack against Russian political opposition figure and anti-corruption activist Alexei Navalny. Although German political leaders have uniformly condemned the attack, Chancellor Angela Merkel and others continue to argue that the infrastructure project should be decoupled from ongoing political disputes with Russia. Impact on Ukraine. In recent years, Russia has sought to reduce the amount of natural gas it transits through Ukraine. Before Nord Stream 1 opened in 2011, about 80% of Russia's natural gas exports to Europe transited Ukraine. In 2018, around 40% of these exports transited Ukraine, and Ukrainian revenues from gas transit totaled $2.65 billion. In December 2019, after the United States established sanctions related to construction of Nord Stream 2, Gazprom and the Ukrainian state-owned energy company Naftogaz concluded a renewal contract for the transit of Russian natural gas to Europe from 2020 to 2024. The contract provides for transit of at least 65 BCM in 2020, a volume equal to about 73% of the 2019 volume of 89.6 BCM, and 40 BCM a year from 2021 to 2024, a volume equal to about 45% of the 2019 volume. According to Naftogaz, the contract will lead to at least $7.2 billion in transit revenue over 5 years. If Nord Stream 2 becomes operational, observers expect it to further reduce gas transit through Ukraine. This would not necessarily increase Ukraine's vulnerability to energy supply cutoffs. Ukraine stopped importing natural gas directly from Russia in 2016. It could lead to declines in transit revenues, however, and increase Ukraine's strategic vulnerability, if reduced dependence for gas transit leads Moscow to be even less constrained toward Ukraine. U.S. policy. The Trump administration's attention to European natural gas issues has focused primarily on expanding U.S. LNG exports to the EU, part of a larger effort to diversify European energy imports, and on opposing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Congress also has expressed opposition to Nord Stream 2. The Countering Russian Influence in Europe and Eurasia Act of 2017 CRIEEA, PL 115-44, Title II, states that it is U.S. policy to oppose the Nord Stream 2 pipeline given its detrimental impacts on the EU's energy security, gas market development in Central and Eastern Europe, and energy reforms in Ukraine. In December 2018, the House of Representatives passed H.Res. 1035, which called for the cancellation of Nord Stream 2 and the imposition of sanctions with respect to the project. For related products, see CRS Report R 42405, European Energy Security, Options for EU Natural Gas Diversification, and CRS in Focus IF 11177, Turkstream, Russia's newest gas pipeline to Europe. Paul Belkin, Analyst in European Affairs. Michael Ratner, Specialist in Energy Policy. Corey Welt, Specialist in European Affairs.